Hello YouTube, this is Harky PCs and today we are here with a benchmark. Now we have two systems, my new AMD system which will be shown, and also our old, still accepted here, friend, the Lenovo Legion 5, which has been a bit of a troublemaker with temperature because of Nvidia. Well, today we're going to compare them, and you won't see my face much in the video, by the way. We do have some footage of gameplay on the laptop and the desktop of one of the games. We did two benchmarks because the laptop doesn't have every other game that we usually, would benchmark in general. But we'll show you the spec list and we'll jump directly to graphs after that. So yeah, hope you enjoy the video. So here we have the AMD desktop, which features a Ryzen 5 5500 and a RX 7600 XT, whilst having 32 gigabytes of RAM over 4 sticks with a thermal Wright Assassin 120 RGB cooler. This has 3200 mega transfers a second of speed, as well as 0 RPM technology on the GPU. And here is the Lenovo Legion 5, featuring 32 gigs of custom added DDR4, 32 gigs, that being 32 mega transfers a second, a Ryzen 7 5800H, and an RTX 3060 to go with that. Now looking at the graph for 3D Mark, we can see that the RX 7600 XT excels in 1440p versus the Nvidia graphics card, which is the RTX 3060 to remind you, where we saw an average FPS of 75 FPS on the RX 7600, whereas on the 3060 we saw a 10 FPS difference at 65 FPS. We also see that the 1% lows are very similar, with the RX 7600 being 60 FPS, but 25 FPS below that is the RTX 3060 compared to the 7600 XT, with a RTX 3060 getting 35 FPS. We can see that Ampere does not beat RDNA 3 in 1440p on the 60 versus the 76. This graph also shows us that the RX 7600, it stays colder than the laptop, which is of course good reasoning because a laptop is more compact than a desktop. Now both had great airflow, I will say that, and the RX 7600 XT fails to surprise me with an average of 68 degrees and a max of 68 degrees on the time spy test at 1440p. We also see that the CPU stays a lot colder on the Ryzen 5 5500 thanks to that thermal Wright cooler, which has a 225 watt TDP at an average temperature for the CPU of 60 degrees as its maximum, with an average of 47 degrees, which is very cold, as its average temperature. Whereas we see on the Ryzen 7 5800H in that compact laptop, it reaches a scorching 97 degrees Celsius, whereas its average is 70 degrees. Now, bearing in mind this is running 1440p, and the GPUs, well, the 7600 ceases to amaze me here with its temperature of 68 on both the average and the max, whereas the 3060 hit 84 degrees at its max, close to its thermal throttle barrier, and 80 degrees as its average, which is 6 degrees off of its thermal barrier. this chart that you guys have just watched the footage of them two playing that game of FNAF Security Breach, we can see the RX 7600 XT smokes the 3060 without any frame gen or any upscaling technology, whereas with a 150 FPS average and a 1% loss of 75 FPS, which feels really quick for a Radeon card. It's my first time using Radeon, to be fair. Whereas the RTX 3060 was hitting VRAM limitations with that 6 gigabytes once again. It was only getting 80 FPS with no upscaling or frame generation technology on Ultra, with the lowest frame being 35 FPS for 1% of the footage, whereas on the RX 7600 XT it was 75 FPS. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to smash that like button, press that red subscribe button to see more from Harky PCs. Also probably go check out my other channel, Harky Gaming, which should be credited in the channel. You should also check out the ones that are linked underneath Harky Gaming, like Silent Spring Gaming if you're into TDS, and LOQ and Key and the others. LOQ and Key I recommend if you're into Fortnite highlights. So yeah, if you enjoyed, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
A la ta ta la di di da di di.